Hello to all my brothers and sisters. It is your boy Kushowa, and uh, today, Christmas Eve. Well, depending on where your time zone is, but point is that it's the holidays, and what would be the perfect, and I mean most perfect thing to talk about during the holiday season? It's so festive. Horror movies. Okay, with that out of the way, thank you, Captain Rockman, for the recommendation slash request to talk about these. No, I would say they're like friendly, but if you know the original stories for some of these, like The Little Mermaid and Pinocchio, well, I wouldn't technically say Popeye is like kid friendly because if you've seen the original cartoon, I mean, it was for kids, but it still has some, I guess, some adult like oriented themes in them for a really old cartoon that came out way back. But because of Disney turning them into kid friendly, not Popeye, but like, Little Mermaid and I guess Aladdin, Pinocchio, like all these stories, public domain now, because, well, I mean, back then they are, but now they're even more so, especially with, I guess, quote unquote, now with like Popeye and Tintin are now public domain. So now people are turning these IPs into horror movies. It's funny how this all started way back with just one particular movie that started the whole. Well, technically, no. I wouldn't say that movie really started the whole trend. But, I say more so Winnie the Pooh did. Pinocchio's Revenge was probably one of the first, but at the time, nobody really thought of, like, taking all these, like, again, public domain IPs and then just deciding, hey, let's turn them all into horror movies. It's just until Winnie the Pooh did it is when everybody started doing so. But I'd see now there's more of a trend where people are like, if it gets in the public domain, then screw it, let's turn it into a horror movie. Like, how many have just become horror films at this point? There's like so many now that it's just insane. And I'm not going to talk about every single one in their stories because, we'd be here all day just talking about every single one. You could do more with these IPs, free to be used, without having to pay any royalties. Like, I'm no lawyer, so I can't really explain, but I will say the whole trend of just taking these IPs and just making them into horror movies has just become, stale, I guess. And look, it's funny, like, in a jokey sense. I mean, there was the Grinch, which, by the way, that wasn't in the public domain at all. Like, that was like it was still copyrighted, but they found a way to make it into a horror film by just calling the Grinch. What was it, the meme? Or I think the green one, I think. But still, I feel like if you're just gonna take these IPs and like, make them into spooky movies, you should do it in a funny way. It's like a joke, as a parody. That one is what they did. I don't know if they were trying to be serious with that one, the Grinch, but if they were making it into like a parody movie of making fun of other like movies that did the same thing, then that's pretty genius and funny. There's much more you can do with IPs like this besides making horror films. To me, like, again, they're all okay, but it feels like all they're good for. Like, I mean, again, there's stuff like, say, for example, like the Wizard of Oz. That's, again, another one that's in the public domain that got turned into a JRPG on the Nintendo DS a long time ago. It's crazy, right? Out of all things to become a like RPG game, it was the Wizard of Oz, out of all things. And it looked cool from when it came out at the time. And it's like, see, this is what you can do. Like, take something like this and do a lot. Well, maybe make that, playing this Popeye movie, now that he's gonna be, well, I think he is next month, from what some sources say. I don't know. Cool if they decided to just take all of these IPs and just do something else with them that isn't just spooky movies. Like, I don't know, make video games out of them, or again, Popeye, for example, make that movie that was supposed to come out a long time ago from Sony, and then, decided they ditched it because, they went like emojis. Kids love emojis.
What the heck?
But still, they could have made an entire film about that, reintroducing the characters of Popeye. Kinda, makes me, like, sad that he's forgotten. But hopefully now, with this occurring, now that he's free to be used by anybody, if anyone wants to make money off of the IP now, they could. And now we could get that movie that we were supposed to get. Or maybe Sony will be like, oh, well, I guess now we don't have to worry about asking permission, so maybe they'll reconsider wanting to do that again. And, maybe we'll get Tom Kenny to voice Popeye again, like he was supposed to in that film. I think there's a lot you can do with most of these IPs. But again, it's like this whole trend of just taking these like IPs and just making horror movies just gets kind of dull and redundant at this point now that it's been just overused. And look, I'm not saying people can't go right ahead, but I feel like there's more like potential to be like properly utilized with these IPs that can be done. Like again, you can make video games with them. It could be action oriented, or I don't know, make TV shows, or like cool like fantasy movies, or again, I don't know, you can make them into anime. Honestly, if these were all turned into anime, people would just go nuts for it. The trend is like, I mean, I don't think it's ever gonna die because once something gets into the public domain, eventually, people are gonna do stuff with it, regardless of what people say or want. 'Cause I don't know, I guess it's popular now to do that, to make everything into a horror film because people just love getting scared. And, don't get me wrong, I love scary, like stuff, like movies, like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Halloween, and I don't know, like Scream, and like, like all of the like spooky horror movies. Even the classic ones like Dracula and like I guess not the Mummy, but I don't know, the Mummy Man, whatever you call him, and the Invisible Man, and like all the classic, like even video games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill, and I guess Clock Tower and Dead Space and Outlast. And again, there's a lot of like horror games that I love, that I would make a list to make an entire video talking about, but we'd be here all day. Instead of just making like horror films, do better with these IPs. Like do something that's completely different. Like again, like I said, with the Wizard of Oz JRPG game that came out on the Nintendo DS, that's how you do it, bro. Like that's how you properly take something that you can use than what everybody else is doing, because it feels like at this point that's all people do, and we could do way better. And I'm not gonna downplay people's, creativity of how they want to portray these characters in their way. It's like if this is how you want to do it, that's okay, 'Cause maybe you're just like making spooky horror films, and that's just your thing, I'm not gonna judge, It's just what you want to do because you just like, scaring people or yourself. I don't know, because you think it'd be interesting. It's fine. It feels like again, it's been just overdone at this point, and I think a lot of people could do better. But again, I know that there's going to be a point where when there's more and more of these IPs that become more and more like in the public domain, that it's just going to end up redundant, it's just going to become like stale, because it's like, really, is this all you guys can do? Again, this is all I can do. But again, I think that's all I can really say, because I don't want to like delve into like just talking about the stories of all these movies, because I ain't no movie reviewer or game reviewer or anything like that. Like I haven't really thought about doing stuff like that, but I'm gonna review them and give me like, oh, this is a 9 out of 10 or whatever. But unless you guys want me to in the near future, I don't know, because that'd be a whole different story. But again, I guess that's mostly it for me. But thank you, like Captain Rockman, for the recommendation slash request. Again, you guys, don't be scared. Let me know what you want me to talk about, because there's so much we can talk about, and hopefully the next thing I talk about will be another interesting like thing to talk about. It'll be an interesting topic to discuss with you guys and me ranting about, because it's gonna be something, I'll say. But thank you guys, love all my brothers and sisters, and again, let me know what you want me to talk about. But as always,